Kevin Clark is here. I did not bring him on to talk about the Orlando Magic. In fact, nobody cares about the Orlando Magic, but we will talk about them at the tail end of this. Football. Are you ready for Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, 5 days a week, National Football League action? Because I feel like this is now in play.
So the Big Ten just postponed or canceled their season, depending on how you define it. Everything is in play. The NFL has made a living over the past half decade of just thin slicing all of their packages. That's why there's Thursday night football. That's why Amazon has rights, all that stuff. And so if they see an opportunity to move to Saturday, they will do that for the full season. There's a reason they do it late in the season. Now they're going to do it for a full season.
And they'll get more money for this, right?
They'll try to, yeah. I mean, it depends. There are so many contractual things. Can you move a game off of CBS or Fox and move it to a special package on Saturday? I don't know. That has to be hashed out in the next month.
It would be amazing if the NFL somehow made more money during a pandemic. If they somehow increased their revenue. It was the only institution we had that somehow figured out how to take advantage of this. I fully expect the Saturday Night Football at least. And then, if I'm CBS or I'm Fox and Goodell comes to me and is like, "Hey man, what about that Jacksonville Texans game that you're going to show in 2 markets on Sunday? What if we just threw that on Friday night? Any interest? We'll give a little extra money, not that much, but any interest?" Like CBS is doing that.
Yeah, or the old SEC slot, 3:30 Eastern on Saturday afternoon. I mean, you can program this. There's a reason college football is so popular, and one of them is that it's in a great time slot, and it's really easy to move Jets Bills there.
Right. Well, that's where we're going. Because I think we're even seeing it now with the NBA, where this kind of March Madness bubble thing we've had for the last couple of weeks, where it's just kind of one game constantly. I know the ratings are a little down, but they should be because, the way they had it before, everybody's just watching the NBA at these certain points. Now it's more spread out, but it's been more fun as a fan. And I think as a football fan to not have 11 games on at 1:00 on a Sunday and you take 3 of those, you move them around, would be more fun.
You now get the same experience as an NBA fan that Premier League fans get, which is just games sneak up on you. It's like, oh my God, it's 9 a.m. Why are the Bucks and the Suns playing? What the hell is this? It's a nice feeling to be caught by surprise by a game.
So you had Warren Sharp on your podcast on Thursday, and he, with a straight face, convincingly laid out a case for the Browns to be our 2020 sleeper. And I haven't really allowed myself to think about football. This is the latest I have not started my homework yet. I haven't read anything yet. I've just kind of had my guard up, but now I think it's so clear the pro football will happen because these owners are just like, hey, if we have 20 guys get it, just bring in 20 more. Like they're just not going to care. So the Cleveland conversation was the first time I had really allowed myself to start thinking seriously about where we're heading here. I thought he should win the Oscar. Like, give Warren Sharp an Oscar right now. Yeah, I mean, the way he casually skipped over the Freddie Kitchens part, I was believing. It's like, and obviously they have Freddie Kitchens, and then he listed like 11 other reasons that the Browns are going to be good. By the end of it, I was a believer. I was thinking about like, oh yeah, maybe they win the AFC.
So Kevin Stefanski, you invented wins above Raheem Morris a decade ago.
Yeah.
I feel like it's possible he should pass the torch. Raheem Morris, who's now a very good position coach, by the way,
true,
should now pass the torch to Freddie Kitchens. Kevin Stefanski will come in and immediately be so much better than Freddie Kitchens that, as Warren Sharp laid out, remember, this time last year, the Browns were the literal favorite in a division that had Lamar Jackson in it. I mean, that's how quickly the NFL changes. My pet theory is always that we're too early on hype in the NFL. We see a couple of pieces, we talk ourselves into it, we neglect the things like offensive line. The reason teams win games, which is little things like the offensive line and head coach and all that and GM. And the Browns have spent a year shoring that up. And so I'm not predicting them to do anything other than be in the mix for the last wild card spot, but it's real. Why wouldn't they have a bump? Because now they have a competent head coach.
It would seem like that would be, I don't know if there's 15 reasons. The 1 through 13 would be that the coach shifted. I don't know. The wins against Raheem Morris, one of the reasons I love that was because of the acronym was WARM. wins above Raheem Morris. It was warm. So I don't know what we do with Freddie Kitchens, how I'm perfectly happy. And I also think Raheem Morris, he was so young when he got that job. That was one of the reasons he flamed out. And now he's kind of redeemed himself. Freddie will never redeem himself. But I don't know what we do from an acronym standpoint.
At the Combine, back when things were normal, I was at a restaurant in Indianapolis, and I saw the Giants coaches at a table. And I saw Jason Garrett sitting next to Freddie Kitchens, and I thought I had a stroke. I mean, like that's an NFL team put that together. They're having dinner. It was unbelievable to see. So New York Giants football, everybody.
So maybe it's just wins above Kitchens. It's just called whack.
Yeah, I think that's a great way forward.
Is it too early to say I'm going to really miss him? Who's 2020's Freddie Kitchens? Do we have any possibilities?
For a first-year head coach, I mean, Matt Patricia is kind of in perpetual Kitchensdom. And true. I think that there's a real, I mean, first coach fired. I'm not sure with this weird year, all that stuff, how first coach fires is going to get played out. But Matt Patricia is all four spots in Mount Rushmore right now.
Was there a first year coach that we were a little dubious of?
No. I mean, I think that most of them are generally competent coaches. Like Matt Rule is a good hire. Right. Again, Kevin Stefanski is a good hire. I think Joe Judge, we're on Joe Judge watch in New York only because he's so inexperienced. And I've actually been kind of impressed with what he's been able to do. He's been at least been talking. The only thing you can judge right now is how much they talk about different scenarios for COVID or whatever. And he's actually been on the forefront of that. And that's the only thing there is to judge off of. And so Joe Judge is okay right now, but just because of the position he was coming from, not being a longtime assistant or a coordinator or anything like that, trying to hire a lot of guys from his Mississippi State days. Like there is some hint of Kitchensdom, but I feel like he's going to be okay.
What there is going to be a hint of are some of the worst headlines, some of the worst newspaper headlines, the most forced puns.
Judge.
Yeah.
And Judge. Aaron Judge is in New York as well. So you have
but with Judge being, if he's potentially incompetent, you get a lot of, you be the judge.
Yeah.
Are the Giants changing coaches?
Yeah. Judgment Day, week 16.
Judgment
coaching
Day.
For his job. Yeah. A lot of that. I will say, by the way, the coaching thing, this is really important. So I was talking to some decision makers today who said that the cancellation or potential cancellation of the college season has one sneaky unintended consequence. College coaches are available. College coaches are available to consult. They're going to be available to come into your building. Is there going to be a bidding war for a consultant fee? I'm not saying that a team can say, we're going to give the reins to Nick Saban for the next 5 months. But I'm saying that I talked to some folks this morning who said there's going to be a real, maybe we give Lincoln Riley whatever he wants to come in and just be a souped up offensive consultant for the next 6 months. And I think that's a real big thing that might develop over the next couple of months. Again, we don't know how it goes because it's only been 20 minutes since the Big Ten suspended itself. But I just think that there's some real interesting wrinkles as far as that goes.
The Patriots did that in 1996 when Belichick got bounced, and they basically just brought him in as I think he was like an associate head coach, or I forget what title, or special assistant to the head coach or whatever. And he just kind of came in almost like he was doing a grad school year in England or something, and just kind of helped the defense. And of course they made the Super Bowl that year. The Saban thing would be really interesting with Belichick. Those guys are close. If he was like,
could you imagine?
Hey, Nick, come on in. We can hang. You get to be in Foxborough and Providence. No restaurants are open. Any interest? Any?
I think it's gonna be so chaotic, the side effects for the next couple of months. I talked to a guy who's a private quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, who has a lot of the top quarterback prospects, and he was telling me that if the season gets canceled, they're just gonna have like a 7-on-7, like basically like a league in October and November, and teams are gonna be able to look at that sort of stuff. There's gonna be rogue games everywhere, and so I just think that it's going to be I think it's great. I think it's really cool. I just
worry about there's so many things that could go wrong with rogue games, especially
people
trying to exploit them.
Oh yeah, no, I get it, but I think that this is a really cool thing, just sort of unsanctioned players. Players are not going to be able to, unless the All-Star games expand in January. Players are not going to be able to showcase their talents, and so you might as well start showcasing them together.
It's a cool thing until like Busta Rhymes is running the road games on some deal with FS1. And you're like, what's happening here? Why is Busta Rhymes a commissioner of unstructured games?
What about The Rock? XFL head?
Oh.
I heard that name this morning.
He just bought XFL.
I have no inside knowledge on The Rock's feelings. I will just say, in talking to people this morning, when we started talking about these sort of unsanctioned 7-on-7 games, there were people who said to me, maybe The Rock is interested. Maybe you get the XFL branding out there and you have a Trevor Lawrence or something like that. You can pay him. Who cares?
So The Rock, I would rather see that than Busta Rhymes or Kenny Chesney. I think would be our two worst case scenarios.
I think I would not tune into a Kenny Chesney charity.
Kenny Chesney's like, Manning might be involved. He's consulting.
Starring Trevor Lawrence.
Oh my God. What happens with the draft? I mean, this could lead to more draft mistakes than maybe we've ever seen in the last 10 years combined.
Yeah. So I think that there's generally the draft can go back until June. Okay. And I talked to John Robinson last week and we talked about what this looks like. And he said, basically, you're going to have scouts looking at 2019 tape and looking at every game a guy played instead of just 4 or whatever. So 2019 will become overanalyzed. There will not be breakout candidates. A guy like Trey Lance, who played Division 1AA or whatever that's called, he will not be able to have the breakout season that people anticipated from him. Remember, Joe Burrow, he said this time last year.
He was like a second rounder, right?
Yeah. I mean, second round if he's lucky. I mean, he was not talked about as an NFL prospect, and then he came on. So we're not going to have that. And the sport of football changes so much now that a guy like Baker Mayfield, who was, not the prototypical size, the NFL teams were able to talk themselves into him being the first overall pick because of the season he had his last year on campus. This keeps happening. Someone like Kyler Murray, who is as talented as any player in the NFL right now, he was considered too short, and then he played his way into being the first overall pick. He probably would have been picked a little lower had he not had that electric final season, right? There are so many guys who are going to slip to the second, third, fourth round because they didn't have their breakout seasons like they were going to have. And so, yes, there's going to be the sort of unsanctioned games are probably going to be a little important, but teams aren't going to figure out how to judge that. I think there's going to be mistakes. I think there's going to be smart teams like we already saw with the Seahawks who trade their picks for good veterans because they don't even want to play the game with first round picks and trying to figure out who is who. I just think that it's going to be probably the most fascinating draft we've ever had because what happened? I mean, I talked to somebody this morning who said that they're getting more into analytics just to try to figure something out. Because, by the way, they have time. You have all these scouts, and you have so much free time because you're not going to be on the road to Louisville on a Friday night. And so now the sport is going to learn about itself because they've got 20 guys sitting around dealing with special projects on the phone with guys, whether that's coaches, whether that's prospects. And then, by the way, if you bring in a head coach of a college, they're going to have special insight too. So it's going to be the most fascinating draft ever. And it's going to be the most confusing draft ever. And I think it's another thing where it's going to divide the smart teams and the dumb teams.
The college coach thing has a lot of potential because there's the Belichick piece. I think Saban would be the odds on favor for him to bring in. Saban's also really, I think he's independently pretty wealthy at this point. Maybe we'll just take the 6 months off. But Belichick could align with somebody that who in college football, is there a coach that everybody hates that would be the funniest person to bring into the Patriots?
Oh my gosh.
There's no like villain coach, is there? I guess Mike Leach would be the closest.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think people like Mike Leach's kind of pirate persona. There's no real villain. I would assume,
there's no Belichick.
Saban has built himself into kind of the Darth Vader situation because he's just won so much and because of his oftentimes sour demeanor.
Well, my Nick Saban feelings.
I do, yes. Mallory Rubin and I talked about it yesterday when we were discussing this very topic.
Congrats on all those titles on the lower degree of difficulty league of college football. Congrats, Nick Saban. Way to go. Way to go. Way to
I
outwit all these half-wits in the SEC.
What
Congrats.
if Belichick just hires all of the coaches? What
Well, I
if
was
that's what
thinking-
he's spending doing today?
Isn't that the Jerry Jones move? Isn't it the Jerry Jones move to be
Yeah.
like, I've got Lincoln Riley and 4 other, and just completely overpay for this college coach coalition, basically? And then Mike McCarthy, then there's stories about Mike McCarthy's a little threatened. He doesn't like having all these people. Jerry Jones meddling again. I think there could be some comedy in that.
Yeah, it's the unintentional and unintended consequences are going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. And also, by the way, you talk about just the idea that there's not going to be game film or whatever. I mean, there's some old school GMs and scouts who just adore game film and can't look at anything else. Like when I was talking to John Robinson, the GM of the Titans last week, he said to me that one of the ways he scouts toughness is he likes to see guys at the end of blowouts. And he just watches them and he wants to see if they're still hitting guys. He wants to see how they finish games. If they're up or down 30 points, are they still knocking people off their feet? And you're just not going to get those little nuances. And I think that's important. And so there's going to be scouts and GMs who just have to adjust.
Interesting. Well, one other thing you had in that Sharp podcast that I hadn't thought about, I hadn't really wrapped my head around the lack of home field advantage.
Yeah.
And what that's been like in the NBA, where we've just seen the last 2 weeks. And I like the bubble. I think it's really worked, but it's also removed some of the, not only advantages, but the feeling of playing in different stadiums and the different quirks, things like that. And I hadn't even thought about how coaches would take advantage of that if you're playing in a place that doesn't really have noise, and are they going to put in rules that the teams can jack in, noise that would be like this fake home field advantage? Basically, it's not there. It's not going to be like this sound vacuum, but he was saying like they could, like, what was his example? Buffalo with, using Josh Allen and just being like Josh Allen, no huddle, just like attack with, big tight ends in there and just trying to wear out the other team. That whole thing made me think like, this could actually be a pretty cool football season, except for the pandemic part. But we're just going to see all these weird things that we never expected to see in a season. Have you thought about that stuff at all?
I've thought about it a lot, and I think that there's the audible part of it. We're going to be able to hear every single thing everybody says, unless, again, there's some weird jacked-in sound noise. But I don't think that. I think teams will adjust to that, and they'll have more dummy calls. I remember talking to guys when they put the microphones on the center of the guard, which I think was around 2012, and that teams basically started coaching their quarterbacks or even their linemen to start yelling out more dummy calls because the TV could pick up on that stuff. And so you're going to have the smart teams trying to figure out how to use that to their advantage and basically speak gibberish. And I think that when, I've had this theory that it's going to be a very simplified season. And if you have Julio Jones or you have Odell Beckham or you have Michael Thomas, and you're just going to give those guys the ball, and that defenses won't be able to tackle because they didn't have pads on, all that stuff. And when I was running that by some folks this week, they said that's kind of it, but it's not the whole way. If you have continuity, you want to make things as complicated as possible. The teams that are going to win this year are the teams that have been together 4, 5, 6 years. They almost have a sixth sense on where everybody's going to be. And they can run complicated schemes against a bunch of defenses that aren't going to be able to be complicated. So if you're the Falcons and you have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, or you're the Saints, you're going to be able to get really complicated out there because you understand it. And you're going to be able to own these defenses who are going to be flat-footed. I mean, I'm never going to bet against Tom Brady, but this would have been an amazing year for Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady to be together, because they could just say, hey, and if Gronk was back, whatever, you could say, hey, remember that play we ran in 2015? Let's do it right now. And that is going to be an advantage this year. This is the continuity season. This is the veteran season. I've been calling it the Occam's razor season. The simplest explanation is going to be the best. If you have talent and you have continuity, you're going to win.
I'm not going to miss Tom Brady, and I'm not going to miss the potential of what that could have been this ESP season where you could do all this shit, because we have our new savior, Cam Newton, on the Patriots. And it's been wonderful so far. I ordered my son a Cam Newton jersey. He demanded it. It's arriving in a couple days. Just got an email today about it. Cam Newton time is here. He is the second wife. He's coming in. He's mixing it up. He's younger, different kind of look. They just are the friends have to choose in your life. They're like, I don't know if I can be friends with the second wife. I don't know if we can double date. And you're just like, well, now I'm going to learn who my true friends are. That's how I feel about the Cam Newton thing. Tom's gone. He left. We have a new guy now. Do I sound insane?
You lost me at the second wife double date thing. But I'll just pick up and just start talking about Cam Newton.
Kyle,
as if I knew
Kyle, you're
what
there.
was going on.
Kyle.
All the way in. All the way in.
Yeah, Kyle's in. Kyle gets the second wife thing.
He gets it. Okay, so yes, I think that Bill Belichick, and I would say this for Sean Payton too, that's why he's always done the Taysom Hill BS. They have always wanted to experiment at quarterback, and they haven't been able to. And there's a reason they signed Tim Tebow. There's a reason that they were able to. He did some interesting things when he had both Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, and he was able to dunk Bill O'Brien into a trash can with Jacoby Brissett 3-4 years ago, whatever that was.
Great game.
I feel like having Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, led to a lack of experimentation at the quarterback position, which is a nice problem to have. But now we're going to be able to see everything he dreams up. Josh McDaniels went to Gainesville and visited with Dan Mullen in 2006, right before the 2007 spread offense came to New England. And they wanted to learn about what Alex Smith was running at Utah. And before that at Bowling Green. And I wrote about that a couple of years ago, but they've always been intrigued by the guy who can use his legs and his arms. It's a math problem. Belichick's talked about the single wing and the evolution of the running quarterback all the time. And so I think Cam Newton can if he's 2018 Cam Newton, let's set aside 2015 Cam Newton. I don't think he's going to be 2015 Cam Newton, but if he can be 2018 Cam Newton, he can pass, he can run. With Belichick schemes, with Josh McDaniels, that's interesting. Can they overcome the 6 opt-outs and Donta Hightower and a lot of talented guys bailing? I don't know. And so
it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. And obviously, there's a reason those guys did that. I support any and all opt-outs, and they're making them probably the decision best for themselves. But from a schematics or from a competitive standpoint, it made me feel better. I was always on the fence about picking the Bills just because I was so terrified about picking against Bill Belichick. And now I'm not on the fence anymore. I'm okay picking against Bill Belichick because of the opt-outs.
Yeah, McDaniels, like the first wife, didn't want to play tennis with him. Didn't really want to travel. She was a homebody. Now Cam's like, yeah, let's go. We'll play tennis. We'll play some golf. You want to go to Barbados? I'm in. Josh, the whole world is his oyster now. He can do all these things he couldn't do before. Do you wish Mo Bamba had opted out of the bubble before the bubble started? Would that have been just easier for Magic fans or no?
We wouldn't have had footage of Taco Fall playing golf that he uploaded yesterday. I don't know if you saw that.
With Mo Bamba?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. It's a tough time to be.
I'm sorry,
fan.
I didn't mean to bring that up. I felt like I stuck a
No,
with
it's
Mo
fine.
Bamba.
I still believe in Mo Bamba as a role player.
You and Kevin O'Connor. You're the last two, and the Bamba family.
Bamba Hive. Okay, so I was talking myself into the Magic to win 2 games in the first round. It was probably getting a little too heated. I was probably a little too excited.
Getting frisky. You start looking at the old Toronto matchups and, remember that time we beat Toronto by 10?
We at DJ Augustine. Made the 3 last year. I was looking, quite frankly, at ways to have socially distanced friends over for the playoffs because I thought we were going to win some of my Orlando diaspora people here in Los Angeles. And that will not be happening. I will not be inviting anybody over to my backyard. Jonathan Isaac's injury sets us back at least a year, maybe 2. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we can't, if we wanted to, we can't trade Aaron Gordon now. You're looking at, I thought Jonathan Isaac, when he plays, is nailed on for all defense and at least in that mix for the rest of his career if he was healthy. But he just hasn't been. And I'm really now at some point it becomes extension time for him. Are we going to make another mistake? We've signed a lot of bad extensions in our days as a franchise, even though this regime has not. And it's tough. I'm not having a good time with this Jonathan Isaac injury. Now Terrence Ross has left the bubble for personal reasons. It's not good, Bill.
And the irony is somebody's going to win the NBA title in Orlando.
Yeah. The Lakers did that 10 years ago.
It won't be the Magic team. Any other football subplots for you? That you feel like aren't being hit enough right now? I thought the Rodgers stuff was pretty interesting in that Kyle Brandt thing about how candid Rodgers was. And it made me think it would be fun if we were heading toward this twilight of Aaron Rodgers' prime before he becomes the official old QB Aaron Rodgers, where he just starts getting super candid and starts giving great quotes and talking about how hurt he is and different things like that. I thought that would be fun. Anything else though?
Yeah, so I think that the Rodgers thing, Peter King was on my pod a couple weeks ago, and he brought up the fact that Rodgers could sort of Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo this. I mean, the ball is in Rodgers' court. If Rodgers balls out the next couple of years, Jordan Love's not going to start. There's not, even though they have the big contract number and all that stuff. I mean, there's nothing. The reason Rodgers started over Favre when Favre kept, basically when Ted Thompson moved on from Favre, when he kept retiring, was that Aaron Rodgers looked amazing in practice. And so, and better than Favre. And there's a scenario where that doesn't happen. So I don't know what happens with Rodgers. I do know, having interviewed Rodgers a handful of times in my life, he is one of the most interesting guys I've ever talked to. His TV takes are really as good as his football takes, and his football takes are really good. I mean, we could, if we want to give him make him third man on the watch or something, like he would fit right in.
Well, his UFO takes are even more. His UFO takes are even more important.
Takes are really good. I mean, there's a lot of buckets for his post career podcast. Is all I'll say about that. I think that with this season, I think getting through it without a major disaster from a health perspective is so important. And when I talked to, Peter King said this a couple weeks ago about how the Lions might potentially win the Super Bowl just because they have 53 guys who remain healthy. When I talked to Thomas Dimitroff actually this morning for a story I was doing, he was talking about how this is it's not just the continuity part of it that's important with the veterans. It's the veterans being able to tell the guys not to go out and don't go out and get risk yourself as some of the baseball guys have done. There was a story a couple days ago where the two Cleveland Indians got caught leaving the hotel by private security guards. That's not going to happen in football because they're going to go to their homes. So you can't even build a bubble. And then what happens if a bunch of 4 offensive linemen test positive on Tuesday? Is the game canceled? Is it pushed back? Is there a 20-week season because you need the flexibility? And hey, this got canceled in week 2. We're going to move back to week 16. They shorten the season. So I think that the flexibility of the season is going to be one of the most important subplots possible. And I'm just really fascinated to see how that develops.
So we extend the season an extra 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We have games every day of the week except Tuesday and Wednesday. But Tuesday and Wednesday will be The Rock and Kenny Chesney introducing these unstructured 7-on-7 games. Their new league. We'll just have football every day, and whoever makes it. And that's how it's going to go.
Yeah. And I'll also say that the cap next year is going to be really fascinating. I mean, just as far as we had $10 million of cap growth every single year since 2013, that was supposed to happen in perpetuity, or even more when the new TV deals come. That's not happening now. So from a team building standpoint, there's probably going to be a lot of good guys who are available in free agency next year. You might get a little NBA as far as who's available. And so I think that the next 12 months in football are going to be the most fascinating ever from a draft standpoint, a team building standpoint. I think again, we're going to see a huge gulf between the smart teams and the dumb teams. And I somehow Bill Belichick will be able to game it to where they're contenders in 2021.
Belichick, Saban, and whoever the most unpopular coach, whoever the coach is that would cause the biggest uproar on the internet. Those would be his two guys.
Dabo's 20, but for different reasons. Dabo's like, he said he was going to quit if they ever paid the players or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah, whoever people would just get upset about. That's who he needs to pick.
I think Lincoln Riley is the simplest guy to bring in here. Just give him a Godfather offer. Let him come in whenever 3 days a week and just make your quarterback into something special. That's all.
What kind of mask are you wearing when you're like walking around?
I have an Orlando Magic mask.
Okay, because the reason I brought that up was basically the first week of the pandemic. I went on Patriots.com, the pro shop, and I bought the 3-pack of different Patriots masks where you have the, I think I have one of them here. people in audio aren't going to be able to see this, but
This
is the old logo one. So they have this one. There's another one that just has little tiny flags. And then there's one that says, "This is my fuck you mask." Kyle would like this. It just says Patriots in big letters. And that's the one I try to wear when I walk around LA. I want people to know where I stand. They don't know anything about me other than I'm wearing a hat and I have a giant Patriots on my face.
I would say this. I would say my Orlando Magic mask does not count as an FU mask. I don't think people. I don't think people.
To yourself.
Yeah, I don't think people are generally intimidated by that. And so I will say this. I very rarely. I don't want to like pretend like this happens all the time, but there are occasions where Ringer fans approach people. Happens from time to time. I would say it's happening more because I'm doing a poor job of hiding by the fact that I have my face, but then I'm wearing a huge Orlando Magic mask. It's not exactly blending in. I think it's if you're on the fence about whether it's me and wearing a huge magic ball on my face, it's probably pretty easy to figure out who's behind that.
Yeah, you should.
That's all.
I wonder if we could make Slow News Day masks. That would be the only way it would be more obvious it was you. When does Slow News Day come back?
Week 1.
You can do it on Zoom.
We're going to do it. I mean, yeah, you were the last in-person Slow News Day.
You know, that seems like that happened about, I don't know, 25 months ago. It was like literally right before right before we closed our office. It might have even been the last day. Was it the last day our office was open?
We had 2 pretty freezing cold takes. Number 1, the entire show was about Tom Brady was staying. But then I said that COVID cannot be caught through the air.
You said that?
I did. That was medically backed at that point. That was scientifically backed. We didn't know about the droplets back then.
I remember we were sitting next to each other and you said something and it made me move like 2 feet to the right and it might have saved my life.
Well, I haven't had it.
No, but just in general, like that could have been a decision because we didn't know. We didn't know anybody in the room could have had it. I mean, we closed the office that night. So that was like that might be the last media in person I ever do in my life.
It was the NBA. It was the Rudy Gobert. That was that night. And then we put it up the next day.
Good Lord. So, who's the week 1 guest? Do you know?
TBD. The last guest we had was Lamar Jackson. And so we are trying to up that. Now, what I will say is that the world is our oyster now because we don't need the previous prerequisite was that they would come to our studio in Hollywood and sit down with us at a table. And now we can get whoever we want. And so we will be making attempts. Jason Gallagher once asked Obama to come on. Did you know that? We
asked him or he wanted him to.
Well, no, Jason Gallagher once sent an email to the Obama people and was like, "Will you come on Slow News Day?" They passed. Someone watched it though. Someone watched it and was like, "This is charming." No, and then we found out later that even getting a no is kind of a thing.
Well, maybe we could go now that we do it on Zoom. We could do it twice a week. You know what's funny about that? Yes. Just nod because I'm going to get a text from Gallagher in about 6 hours. Be like, "Hey man, heard you mention in KC about going twice a week. Were you serious about that?" And I won't know whether he's bummed or excited.
I think he would be excited.
Well, now with Zoom, you could probably get whatever guest you want. It's so fucking easy.
I agree with you. Although it is like Lamar Jackson, we had some reception problems during the episode, which doesn't happen when they're in person.
Yeah, true.
So,
all right.
I mean, but it'll be a fun season. And we're doing Ringer NFL show today, an emergency one on college and all that. So a lot of content.
Okay. Yeah. And then when the season starts, Sunday nights and then Thursday, but the Ringer NFL show, we have some stuff in store for this season.
We do have some stuff in store.
Very excited for that. All right, Kevin Clark, good to see you. Sorry about the magic.
It's I've learned to deal with it.